I understand. Or the lack of. Should we just wait? Good afternoon. I'd like to open the October 21st, 2013 Single Family Design Board meeting. And we will begin with the opening public comment. Any member of the public may address the Single Family Design Board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled for public discussion before the board today. I see no one coming forward, so we will close public comment and move on to the approval of the minutes of the Single Family Design Board meeting for October 15th. 2013. We'll go. Have a vote, please.
I move to approve.
You move to approve. Thank you.
Second.
We have a second. And we'll start with, excuse me, the right paper in front of me. The 616 East Valerio Street. Am I on the right one? Excuse me a moment. That would be Tuesday, right? That's right. It was a Tuesday. There we go. 1702 Hillcrest Road. Any comments, corrections? 745 Dolores Drive. Okay. All in favor? Minutes? Aye.
I'll abstain. I was not here.
All right. Bernie abstains.
Wait, did we call the roll?
No, can we call roll, please? Thanks, Bernie, for keeping me on my toes. Here.
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 Brian Miller. Lisa James.
Here.
Jamie Pierce.
Here.
Jim Zimmerman.
Not here. Okay, and we'll move on to the consent calendar for October 21st, 2013. Yes, the first
So
please.
moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The consent agenda for today, Monday, October 21st, 2013. Item A, 836 Miramonte Drive, is granted final approval as submitted. Item B, 2215 Edgewater Way, was postponed 1 week at the applicant's request. Item C, 1500 Franceschi Road, was granted project design approval with the MPO findings and final approval with conditions. And item D, 1813 Castillo Street, was granted project design approval with the NPO findings and final approval as submitted. Items on consent were reviewed by Mr. Fred Sweeney and Jamie Pierce.
Thank you. Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
I have to abstain on item B on that.
Okay. On today's agenda. All right.
No, on that
Oh, on
consent.
consent. All right. Any announcements? Staff? Okay. We have no subcommittees currently, so that we can move on to our first project, 1676 Franceschi Road. Can you get that mic? Could you introduce yourselves, please?
Kirk Redeem, architect.
Susan Van Atta, landscape architect.
Welcome.
Thanks.
And this is a final review. And we'll have some minutes here in a minute to read into the record.
Madam Chair, the project was last seen on July 15th. And the board took the following action: project design approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met, stated in subsection 22.69.05 of the City of Santa Barbara Municipal Code, and continued indefinitely with full board with the following comments. One, the board had positive comments regarding the project's consistency and appearance, neighborhood compatibility, quality of architecture materials, and good neighbor guidelines. Provide all final details, including windows, railings, and garage door. Consider having a more formal landscaping plan to be more consistent with the architectural style of the home. 4, provide compliance with Tier 3 storm water management program requirements. Action was on a motion by Zimmerman, second by Pierce. On a 6-0 vote, Sweeney was absent.
Okay, thank you. And how did you address those issues then?
Well, in a big way. And there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, good.
But I think I'll just start with the residence itself and comment just to some of the minor changes that occurred with it, as well as the accessory structure, and then introduce some of the site features that have changed since the last time, and then I'll let Susan take over because it's really her design in large part. Of course, we were working together on it, but in terms of the residence, the footprint really hasn't changed at all. The square footage did shift slightly. We added a storage area that's attached to it's because of the stairs that goes up to a deck over the garage. It's an attached portion of the house, so it falls under the house square footage. And I think there was another small area we added somewhere as well that pushed us up to 119% of the allowable FAR. I think we were at 114 prior. Now this hasn't changed. This is still 200 square feet. What we did is we've created a larger covered patio area surrounding it. It was about half the size that is shown there currently. But overall, in terms of the elevations, which I think were shown at 1/8" scale last time, they really haven't changed very much at all. This is the accessory structure, which, as I mentioned, this basically was an extension of this roof out another. And the addition of these columns, actually, we didn't have these exterior columns prior iteration. But then all we've done is developed further the detailing and look of the house, but there's really very little that it changed in terms of massing or fenestration, window sizes or dimensions, shapes. This is an added portion. We ended up creating a stairway out to this easterly yard area that prior we didn't have any access from the main floor level to that yard area, so that's new, and that roof extension is new. And it occurs from the front of the house on this side right there. We're, as we originally presented, all the exterior walls are stone and in a random ashlar pattern where we've defined the shape and spacing of stone pieces on the front elevation is where we'll have a more honed stone surfacing, tightly detailed, as you can see at the columns and so on, and the arches. But then at the remaining areas, it will be a rougher cut random ashlar. And then also that rougher pattern will carry into the landscaping too. We have now quite a bit more landscape walls than we did previously, and we'll be using that same stone pattern and look in the landscape.
Okay.
In fact, just to mention, that is also one of the things that changes in a major way since the last review is I believe we had less than 500 cubic yards of grading, and now we have over 2,000, and that has to do with the kind of reshaping of the yard for the landscape features and hardscape. And then we're also providing a color board, which is very basic, really. All the exposed sheet metal will be copper. The doors and windows are going to be kind of a natural iron color, sort of a gray-black, brownish color. The wood, all the exterior wood will be stained, and then of course all the sandstone will be a true 2-inch veneer Santa Barbara sandstone, not an imitation stone, but a true veneer. And then this doesn't adequately represent the tile that occurs at the dome, but on the color board it's a
Turquoise.
It's more of a turquoise. Yeah. But there are some other places that will be using tile as well. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, really pretty tile.
And even on the front of the house, there's at the entry, around the main entry, we're going to be using this and some smaller variations, basically out of the same tile company, which is a clay. The color is the actual the clay. The color that you see is the clay, so that you get this kind of more antiqued natural surfacing than would occur with a glazed tile. And they have also these Moroccan and Arabic patterns.
Very nice.
Yep.
Can you see this one?
And you'll see, as we get into the landscape plan, there's also a number of water features that will be incorporating tiles of a similar type.
Beautiful. Okay. I'll just keep these here, I guess.
There's section and detail sheets. If you want to go through those, I'm happy to go through those in detail if you like, or not.
Well, we should see them. You're asking for final, so.
Yes. I skipped one of the detail pages there. Not everything has been detailed at this point, but we've made, I think, sufficient study of the major exterior elements that were, we've resolved a lot of the issues having to do with stone and the eave detail. The door and window details are all basically resolved now. In some cases, we have these very deep and thickened walls, double framed walls, where we'll be having stone on both sides. We're using Hope's doors and windows, which has a very small profile, and so we've worked that out, and also how the stone interacts with the tile in different locations. Where we have unexposed parapets, we have stone coming up over the top and then plaster on the inside. This is our standard eave detail, where we'll be have a triple eave tile and a kind of boosted and randomized patterning of the tile to give it an older look of the roof surface. As well as you'll see on the color board, we're using a recycled clay tile so we'll have this natural antiquing to it.
Nice. Okay.
This is our gutter and downspout leader box detail. Typical column caps, trellis details, end cuts. This is some of the patterning that we're going to use. We have a couple of kind of stone grills on windows. This is one of them, and other decorative window features that are happening in various spots. And this is a kind of our first working of the profile. Probably as we get into construction, we'll be modifying this slightly, but this gives we basically have two column types depending on the height of the column. This is an illustration of that, and this is our standard railing detail as well. This is kind of a major feature of the front elevation of that two-story bay window, and just shows the combination of the wood panels that are inserted below the windows, how the sills and heads are going to work out, and then a stone base at the bottom. And then we also have turned wood posts in between the windows. So, lighting plan. We are basically using 3 Handelman fixtures for all the exterior decorative fixtures. And in some cases they're hanging. Where they're shown as a hanging fixture, it's under a patio cover or a roof. So there's no night sky issue with that. And in the case of wall-mounted fixtures, it has a wrought iron cap to it already, so it's we're avoiding that night sky issue as well. It's 3 pages of lighting. Accessory structure lighting. And this should be crossed out probably on this sheet, because we up until we made the actual submittal, we thought the cabana that we're wanting to provide on the lower side of the property was going to be allowed as and considered more as a trellis structure than an accessory building, but turns out it does need a modification, so we'll be coming back to review that with you at another time.
Okay.
And probably the grading plan is going to make more sense if we review the landscape plan and the site plan first. I can go back and,
Which way do
if you
we
don't
go?
mind, go back to the cover sheet just
Cover
for a
sheet.
moment.
All right.
And I'm just going to introduce some of the site features and then let Susan take over. I'm going to start with the driveway, because previously we were eliminating just a portion of this existing driveway, which you see in this area here, and we were basically staying with the existing grading and approach. We've now, partly driven by the wanting to have a relatively flat area in here once you arrive up near the house and making visual contact with the house instead of continuing to slope up as you pass the house. So that created the need to meander this driveway a little bit more to get meet the slope requirements, as well as allowing us to provide these water features that are in the front yard. And these two areas are actually shallow pools that you can see represented partially, at least, in this rendering. There's one from here to here, and then one on the other side of the entrance. Just can't be seen very well, but it is partially reflected in there. That will both mirror the building from the driveway approach side, as well as mirror the view from the inside. This is a major view port from inside the house. And then Susan will discuss the stone and the other varieties of paving that she's proposing, and as well as this fountain that we did have a fountain in a similar location from the beginning, but this is a little bit enhanced. This area, I'll let Susan talk about it, but it's also been partially rethought. And then big changes occurred on the downhill side of the house, where we now have a very formal orientation that works with the axis of the house, spa, water feature on this side, and stairs going down to a level pool deck area. This is where we're hoping to, and had originally designed the cabana to fit right in and work with the pool elevations here. I'm also just going to mention that, and I do have drawings here if the board would like to just look at them and comment unofficially on them, because we will be coming back for some further modifications. One is for the cabana. Another is for a storage area that's basically below grade, right in this area, because we have about a 8 to 9 foot step down from the lawn area to the pool deck area. And then we're planning also, currently we're showing the mechanical equipment for the pool in this location as on a recessed slab with a 4-foot wall around it. But we would like to put it completely underground with a door access on this side, because this is 8 or 9 foot wall. But because it's an enclosure and this is an enclosure, they require modifications because we have 2 front yards on this project. So these are both accessory enclosures in the front yard. So I think that about concludes my portion of it, and I turn it over to Susan.
Okay, let's find our pages. And with me today are Justin and Travis, who worked on this project with me in the office. And right behind you. Right behind me, right in front of you. And so this plan is actually quite similar to the plan that was approved previously. The difference being that it has been made more formal as suggested at the last hearing and documented in the minutes. And so in order to make it more formal, instead of just the slopes that were there before in some instances, we've got dry stack walls and closer to the house retaining walls instead of more natural grades, although all of this grading, all of this design was deliberately intended to work with the existing topography as much as possible. So it's a very big site, and I'm sure you know that there was an existing house here that was along the top of a ridge, and therefore it slopes pretty steeply in both directions. And there's an existing retaining wall here that's about, 12 feet high?
10.
This is 10-foot high existing retaining wall that was built in order to accommodate this structure and its yard. So it was pretty undeveloped previously. This corner of the landscape is a big hole because this was a quarry from which they got the stone to build some of the existing steps and all that are on the site. So it seems like, I think, maybe a lot more development than it really is. Mm-hmm. So you can tell more graphically, you can see these very shallow reflecting pools that, that the civil engineer is hoping will help us with our stormwater management. We worked very closely with the civil engineer, and so this whole area, it also doubles as stormwater retention. We have these dry stack walls to accommodate the orchard. There's an orchard here now, but it doesn't work with the topography, and this new orchard will be going with the grades instead of against the grades as they go now, but we're using these to capture for bioswales, and there's kind of a detention basin at the bottom. So what we're trying to do is take the civil engineering and sort of make it beautiful, take best advantage of the rainfall as it falls on the site, and not have to have sort of separate engineered structures, but really have it be a part of the landscape. And then the other features, we haven't really, aside from there weren't reflecting ponds here before, same features and generally the same locations. A spa, previously it was sort of built into an existing sort of grotto that is on the site. We've turned that into more of a rock garden, and now we have a more formal spa at this formal axis. And the pool is in the same location, same size as it was before, but we've taken our inspiration from Andalusian landscapes. And so the rest of it, now this pool will look like a fountain, maybe like you might see at the Generalife. But it actually, I think the sprays will be fun for their grandchildren to play in. So. And then this is the same as it was before. We terraced previously. Previously, the client wanted a vineyard, but now it will be a Sure. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. I just started to speak into the microphone. I forgot about the microphone. I apologize. So basically the point I've been making all along is that this is very similar to what was approved before, but we've just made it more formal to go with the architecture. And at the ocean side of the view, at the far side, we have dry stack walls to support a citrus orchard. And we've provided this more formal lawn area. It was a lawn area before. And as you can tell, it's a pretty minimum amount of turf for such a large site, right off the living space. And then it terraces down so that we can get a really nice flat area for the pool down below. And then we step down into a little bit of a putting green on this level. So it's if you looking carefully at it, I think you can see it just really makes sense with the topography. The other thing we paid close attention to was all the landscaping and the screening around the perimeter. This is our irrigation plan and all the statistics surrounding the irrigation plan, and we do meet the requirements of the city in all of this. And this is our planting design, and I have a lot of images to show about our concepts for the various gardens, but I think the most important thing possibly for you and certainly the neighbors is what we're doing along the boundary. And so we are specifically calling out the plants and sizes for that. And at this, most of these open circles are the existing oak trees to remain. So the idea behind the landscape overall is that we're setting this somewhat more formal, but definitely Mediterranean landscape into an oak woodland. But the oak woodland, there's not that much of it left. There's some beautiful oak trees there now, but we're looking at really making it feel like this was in an existing oak woodland. So this sheet represents the screen planting. So we have new oak trees, as you can see, with the dark trees around the perimeter, and then we were using the toyon and the native cherry to fill in underneath that to get a really excellent screening along both sides and all the way around here. And then at the bottom edge, this wall has no screening, so we're planting a very large growing bougainvillea to drape over that 10-foot high wall at the boundary below. And then above that we have an orchard. So it's pretty well screened for all the neighbors. Along the street at the entry, the client wanted olive trees along the drive, and so we're calling this the Mediterranean garden. And so these represent olive trees, and with that we would have some of the existing on-site agaves we'd bring and use setting back well from the road, and then other Mediterranean plantings like lavender and rosemary. Then at this edge of the property, and I guess you can pass those around to. There are a lot of landscape architects on this committee, unlike other committees in town that don't have enough landscape architects. Down at this documents what we're thinking of for down below, which is the citrus orchard, the bougainvillea that would go drape along the wall, and then the dry stack walls themselves would have rosemary planted to trail across them. Here are some images of what we're thinking of for the perimeter oak woodland, that it would be native plants, but the most beautiful ones that grow locally. And so that would just be renaturalized. Then at the motor court, this isn't shown in a lot of detail, but we'd like to have somewhat of this kind of a paving pattern. This is taken at Casa del Herrero, where we took the client there to look at it. And we were thinking that we'd have a driveway that would be reminiscent of this with the combination of mosaics and probably exposed aggregate. And then in this area and in this area, there would be planting, and it would be permeable, more like this area, planting between the stone.
Okay.
And then the very colorful plantings all throughout this area. The clients like a lot of color. They also want the landscape to look, the whole house to look like it's old. This I remember her saying specifically. So Kirk found that beautiful tile, and he'll be using it on the inside, but that will be our theme for the fountains. We'll have tile, and generally in this toned down but nicely colored tile here, and here for the water feature. So that'll be a little more color in the landscape. Then we have other specialty gardens within the landscape. The client would like a flagpole, so we've tucked one into the landscape, and we've created a garden of sages that are red, white, and blue. The orchard, this just documents what the orchard could be like. No one will see this, but there is a roof terrace that will be roof garden, and these are some of the plantings that we propose. There'd be an espaliered fig and dwarf olives, and just, again, colorful plantings. Scented garden around some of the outdoor areas. We've created a lot of overlook areas for them, and we'd like to put scented plants around those. And then our theme for this these retaining walls is to have beautiful silvery plants. This is a garden in Montecito that was the inspiration for that, and that would be this area to help there'd be a lot of planting, and all of these stone walls would be nicely screened. And then the balance of the landscape could be what we're calling the coastal sage garden, and that would be low-growing plants that are drought tolerant and have beautiful silvery colors and textures. And aside from just having this one little teeny lawn over here, we may have some meadow area down around in here, which will also support the watershed management and the basins. And then we've got another little meadow over here. So I have we also have the lighting plan for the landscape. This plan documents these are the orchard trees that exist now. We're keeping all of the oak trees, and there are some assorted other specimen trees that we will be reusing in the landscape, such as we're hoping to reuse the plumerias, for example, but just not that many. We're not really losing very many trees or having to relocate very many trees. And this is the lighting plan. So for the lighting, we like to keep it really low-key and subtle, and mostly it's either to get people safely through the landscape to the areas that people might like to use at night. And two main techniques. One is we're going to put really soft LEDs underneath the risers. You would not be able to see the source, but this is, even though that we thought, so it's just integrated into the design, is an ability to get around safely up and down the stairs. And then also we've got down lights out of the trees for area lighting in the landscape, so it'll be a soft lighting that'll feel like moonlight. And so that is the primary source of lighting. We have a little, yeah, all these little guys hanging out of the trees. So that's my favorite way of lighting. And then the pool, of course, has some lights. There are just a few lights to light up the reflecting pools, a little bit of light in the fountains, just to kind of spread it through the landscape. We thought at night they probably wouldn't need to come any further into their orchard than to come over to this little trellis area that we have here. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, I feel like we are showing some uplighting of the olive trees along the entry, and they would be very shielded, and I wanted to check in about that. I think it could meet night sky requirements, but every jurisdiction interprets that differently. But we wanted it to be very soft, and actually you wouldn't, and we're not actually showing the fixtures because the fixtures are meant to disappear into the landscape, and the lighting would just be sort of magical, and you wouldn't be very aware that it's even lit. And here are some sections. They all refer back to this plan. So this is the east-west axis. So of course, you're on a bridge coming down this way. The east-west axis is pretty level. This is the house. So the axis that goes right through the center steps down pretty gently at the entry side, and then you can see, going with the existing grades, how we've worked that out. Right now, this is just a straight slope, and so that area becomes usable. We met with a soils geologist, and he let us know that that should work out pretty well. And then this other section through this terracing right here. So that's
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, at this time, I'd like to open up public comment if we have any slips or any letters.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have one letter from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay, thank you. And we'll close public comment, and it goes to questions from the board. Would you like to start, Mr. Sweeney?
Yeah, just some tidy questions. You talked about 2,000 cubic yards of grading now. I'm assuming that's cut and fill on the
Yes.
site? Nothing's leaving, nothing's coming in?
I think we're having to import some.
So you have to bring
Yeah.
some stuff in?
Yeah.
And then I was curious about, and I'm sorry, I wasn't here at the last meeting that this was reviewed, the extent of the blue tile on the blue dome. I couldn't tell from the elevations. Maybe there's a
It's
section
just-
we can look at.
Well, it's
Right there?
that's
Is
it
it
right
basically from right there to right there?
there. Well, that was an earlier section. So actually, if you go back to the elevations, 8-1, I think. 8-1. I'm actually a little bit disappointed because it's hardly going to be visible. But previously we had a shelf that went around it.
Oh, okay. So
And now it
basically it
curves
comes down
down.
from right there.
Yes.
And then these little windows in that dome, do they pop out, or are
They recess.
They go with the recess, so
Yep.
they're inside the curve.
Right.
And then just because you're using such an exquisite tile for everywhere else in terms of this rustic tile, have you selected the blue tile that goes on this yet?
Well, I've given a color sample of the kind of general direction that I'm heading in at the moment, but it might actually have a little pattern in it.
But
Yeah,
will it have this
same.
kind of tarnished feel, or will it be a more glazed look?
No, it's going to be tarnished.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And let's see. On the, you had the tree pictures went away, but you had a what appeared to be a manzanita type tree with a red bark skin.
Oh, in which image?
Girls, can you bring the
One of
photos
those
of the
had, I
plants
think it was
back?
called manzanillo or something like that. I was just curious of where those were. Yeah.
Oh, it's an olive.
Is that the olives that are on the front?
The olives along the front.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, this is Monter. That was on the roof terrace. Is that what you
This,
saw?
the dwarf
Yeah,
one was on
That's
the
a
roof
dwarf
terrace.
olive. That's on the roof terrace.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. And then, I guess I have two other questions. One is, I assume at some point you kind of figured out the fire issue up here in terms of landscaping?
Oh, that actually, if we go to the landscape plan, we did mark the fire zones on the landscape plan.
Okay.
And so we are conforming, we're keeping the new trees away from the structure and keeping all the landscape low next to the house.
Okay.
So we're following the requirements of the fire department for that.
Okay, but has this plan been looked or blessed by the fire department yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
So here's the legend, and here are the zones.
Okay. So my final question is basically to staff. Michelle. Theoretically, this project's here for final approval. But as I heard the presentation, it appears they've got some modifications that have to occur. And then, of course, getting the fire folks to look at this. So technically, can we really give them final approval at this point, or do we have to hold off?
Procedurally, what they're here for is final approval. So you can grant final approval, but part of that you may not actually comment on the modifications that they discussed. The modifications would have to be held at a separate hearing where they're noticed for a modification, and at that time, in a future date, you can.
And then would they
Come
have
back.
to come back to us again?
Yes.
After that?
Yes.
So in theory, we can give this final approval,
Yes.
and if they weren't asking for the modifications, they could go right to the building department.
At this time, they're not asking for the modifications.
Okay,
They've
gotcha.
removed the elements from the plans.
And what about the fire blessing? Does that matter whether we,
That can just be a condition that it gets reviewed during the building department
okay,
by
so that's the
NMARCs.
normal sequence of things. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Lisa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you explain a little bit more about the roof terrace?
It's located here,
Is there a section?
and then we
Yes.
didn't, okay. Oh, Kirk has a section.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Okay. Let's go back. So there's two, I think there's two roof decks. Three. I guess you could call it, say there's three. There's one over the garage, and this is the one that she was referring to. We show a planter around the perimeter of this garage roof, which is a deck that's accessed off the master, as well as a stairway that comes up from the back. Of course, on the whole downhill side, this main entry level has a large deck area that's also a roof to the floor below. So it's defined. Sorry, can I use this?
Sorry.
So, this is a circular deck area, which is unroofed, but then these columns sit out on this patio. So this is a covered terrace. This is an uncovered portion of the terrace, and then it's covered again here in these arches. And then there's a large covered terrace on this side of the house, too, that goes back in. And this is actually where we're showing like sort of an outdoor dining area.
So just
And
the
then-
one is planted? Only the
Yeah,
one
only the
here?
one is planted. That's right. Yeah, and then there's the third floor deck area off the master, which occurs in this area.
So which one is the roof terrace then here?
The one that Susan was referring to is
That-
over
On top of the garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could look at it in plan, and we do have a section cut through it if you want to see that. It's yeah. So it's pretty basic. It's actually going to. We're showing steel here, but it's actually going to be a concrete structure, walls and roof. There's several deck drains shown. It drains to the middle, and then will be carried out.
And the edge has this raised planter.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Jamie?
I was just curious about the spa and the layout, and is this looks like a scalloped spa? Is that what it, or,
Yes, it could be.
okay, so it's just with paving around it.
Okay, so we were thinking that those little scallops, they're about the right size for a person's back.
Okay,
So it could be kind of comfy.
right. Okay. Thank you, I was just curious.
Questions, Bernie?
Yes, thank you. I just would like to remind everybody that we've seen this project several times. We've had story polls, we've had input from the neighbors, so it's gone through a lot of different transitions, and I think it's really beautiful. I have just a couple of questions. One is a general question. When there's going to be a demolition, is anybody, Kirk, you would probably know this, is anybody recycling any of this stuff?
That's
or?
a great question, yeah. Fortunately, we have a superb contractor on board who's already made arrangements for everything that can be recycled. It's going to be basically dismantled, the houses,
Okay,
and all the materials recycled. Yeah.
Okay, great. That answers that. And my only other question is about the lighting, and I'm just wondering from my fellow board members if I know it's beautiful and I know it's moonlight, but there's a lot of light. There's light on the pool, there's light on the trees. I just wonder if that is compatible with that neighborhood, if other houses have that as well.
So I was going to reserve turning my comments for the comment period on that.
Okay, well, I'm finished, so go.
All right, comments.
Madam Chair, I did have one question before we go to comments. On the bougainvillea that's going to drape over that bottom wall down there, just given the nature of how bougainvillea grow here in Santa Barbara and the age that it can grow to, are we going to have a driveway problem for someone driving down that driveway as that bougainvillea gets big? Is the driveway wide enough that it's not going to be a problem?
Well, right now there's lots of plant material coming over that wall and down the wall, and actually growing up from the base as well.
Right.
And as far as I know, it's not currently presenting a problem, but you're absolutely right. That will need to be maintained and trimmed so that it doesn't get into.
Owner, because it's on their property, have to maintain it.
Right. Yes.
From a
right.
longevity standpoint, whether that's an issue. That was my question. Thank
Okay, on to comments.
If I
Sure.
may start, I think it's we've seen it transform from a contemporary solution to an historic solution, and I think it's an extraordinary house, and it's probably going to be one of those that everybody in town's going to want to be able to get a tour of at some point, and I don't know whether your clients are going to be amenable to that, because it's going to be an extraordinary piece of architecture, and I say that in the vein as architecture is landscape and building together. But in terms of comments, given the neighborhood issue, two concerns is early on, I think it was Mr. Fingers, who is the resident on this side, had concern about being able to see in windows and so forth there. I think that's all been resolved, but given the latest landscape screening issue on this side, maybe we should go to the landscape plan.
Next slide.
I just want to make sure, have you had any further discussions with Mr. Finger on the final solution?
We have. They were in contact with us, repeatedly as we were going through the design and wanting to make sure that we were adding some, and Susan
Specifically there.
can address that.
I also met with the neighbor on the other side of him, Laurel, and she pointed out an existing aloe in this area to let me know where the new trees needed to go.
Okay.
So that's what I based that
And
location
then
on.
just to comment on the lighting. I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I can visualize what this mountaintop is going to look like with the lights on. It will be pretty magical. I'm just concerned out here at the street, given the neighborhood, that it may be a little overtaxing. I had the same dilemma when we did the airport. The lighting designers wanted to uplight all those alley of palm trees. And we went through that whole exercise, and the ABR and Landmarks folks said, no, we're not uplighting palm trees in Santa Barbara. So I'm just a little concerned that it's not as conducive to this neighborhood than it might be somewhere else in Santa Barbara as you're driving up this roadway. And I realized, this is kind of not on the main track of anybody. I mean, if you know the hillside, you kind of know this road, but not everybody drives this road. So I'm just a little leery about if we put it in, are we going to get some upset neighbors? That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
That was the one thing that I was concerned about as well, and the reason we have them in here is to help people find this home. but I'd be more than happy to revise that, and perhaps we could just have uplight right at the entrance, just to help people find the
Right,
house.
right.
Yeah.
I think
And
that
then
that might
take
be
off the uplights that go along
that
the
might be a
drive.
better way to do it, because I think the magical part of this, to some degree, for an outsider who won't be able to get onto the property, is if you do drive, then by eliminating that level of lighting, then you do see the little sparkly happening up on the tree, I think, maybe more. So that might be a nice compromise.
I just have one thought about that, is that actually, we could go along with Susan's comments, but I would vote or suggest that putting uplights on, say, this tree and this tree.
Because it defines
would-
where the road is?
Well, to define where the road is and provide some illumination for a road that is otherwise completely dark at
otherwise
night.
black.
And overgrown with trees. I mean, there's oaks all along
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, if you get lost
And
up
it's
at night-
narrow. It's very narrow, too.
If you get lost up there at night, you're lost.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there's some halfway in between solution in lighting all of them.
Yeah.
So a light half or less of the light of the trees?
Yeah.
Maybe, I think, Kurt, your point is well taken. So maybe some way to define, use the lighting to define it at night, and then certainly at the entry so that you can actually figure out where the gate is.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a better way to approach it than just kind of lighting the whole thing. Anyway,
Yes.
that's my comments.
Okay, more comments? Yes, Jamie?
Well, it's kind of a question and comment. The lighting on the back side of the retaining walls is at the base for just pathway lighting,
So
basically.
is that down,
On the south side?
is there still
Oh. Like on the back side of the walls?
So that would be
curved
a
wall.
way, that would be lighting that would be a part of the wall, and so you wouldn't appear as a fixture and just a soft glow at the edge of the wall, as a way to, instead of path lighting, over to the, this little overlook
Okay.
area.
And then it looked like the symbols were reversed for the tree hanging lights, moonlights. They are in water lights, just so you know.
Oh, so there's an error on the legend that we need to correct? Okay, thank
Well,
you.
just on the plan, they're reversed.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I think it's beautiful, and the plant selection is really very nice and creative. I like how you, have your certain designated areas and the combinations within those areas. I think it's very, very nice.
Okay, more comments? Lisa?
I'll weigh in. I appreciate, the board appreciates what you've done to respond to our comments, and I'm happy to support the project.
Okay. Bernie?
Yeah, I am in support of the project. I think it's going to really be beautiful, but I do want to have somebody study the lighting, maybe talk to a few of the neighbors. I'm a little bit concerned about how the pool, how lit up it's going to be, and if that's going to be something people are going to be able to see, or if it's completely secluded. So that's really my only concern. Otherwise, I'm supportive of everything else.
Okay. I'll weigh in. I think it's a beautiful project, and it really has come quite a long way. I love your materials. The landscapes really, really does it's in keeping with the style of the home. I love the Andalusian layouts and axes. It's beautiful, beautifully done. I, too, have a little bit of concern about how much lighting there is, including the moonlighting. I think that I love it, and I know that fixture is that little copper one, isn't it? That's about it's a little guy.
It's actually black.
Is it a black
And
one?
we used it at the Biltmore and
Okay.
also at the County Bowl.
Uh-huh.
And it does just what Fred was saying, is that you can't really tell about the moonlighting, but if you stand at the bottom of the slope and look up, it's like little twinkle lights.
Little twinkle lights,
So that
yeah.
the bulbs themselves are very small.
Okay, all right. Well, that's going to look really nice, and I don't see it. Since you don't have an actual picture of this fixture,
It would just be integrated into the stone
downlit.
wall. Yeah.
Yeah, as a path light.
So in the daytime, you wouldn't really be aware there was a fixture there?
Okay. All right. Well, I think we should move this along then and make a
You
motion.
don't have water flowing through like the Senor Jalife?
Well,
Yes, we do. We have runnels.
There's runnels.
Yeah,
We have
runnels.
You can
Okay.
see that,
Yeah.
actually. It's just, it didn't show up that well because they're narrow and they're blue on the plan.
First
but you-
time I saw that, I was just blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Beautiful.
Madam Chair, I would move for a final approval
Okay.
with a comment that the designers, landscape and architectural design team work with the client of the neighborhood to assure that the lighting levels at the front streetscape be designed in such a way as not to overwhelm the adjacent neighborhood. And that the board is approved of the color palette as presented, the landscape plan as presented, and the details, and recognizes that this project may come back to us after certain modifications are requested.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
You.
Jamie's second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
I have a
Sorry,
comment.
under discussion.
How about cut sheets for the lights?
Cut you.
I mean,
Oh,
it's-
I thought
You
they were
assume
on
that's
here.
coming?
I thought they were on here, but
Well, I mean, for these,
The
Landscape
landscape
lights?
lights?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
those, we call it the model number, and so the cut sheets would, so I didn't actually provide cut sheets, I apologize. It's, but they're little lights like this.
do you want
For
the
the landscape.
cut sheets in the, are you going to
Well,
have
I just think, I wonder, it's just going to help us assess, we're
Right.
going to be looking at lighting again, right?
No, we're,
This is it. Once we,
Okay.
this-
We're given
once
this
it's done.
final
So my
approval,
question to you is, will this have a book spec? Or is everything on the drawings?
It's going to be on the drawings, yeah.
Okay. So the question to you is, do you want cut sheets on the drawings? She has model numbers
she's
now.
got all the model numbers, but I know if you're not looking them up right now, you can't really see
Right.
them.
How do you feel? I mean, if we're approving the amount of lighting and that it's down lighting, we're just hoping that that's what it'll be?
We can
The
bring,
model numbers.
Well, the model numbers
Yeah.
are on there, so they'll be held
Okay.
to that.
All
But we
right.
don't know what that model number looks like. I
Right.
guess that's your point,
we
right?
can bring a submittal of cut sheets for the landscape lighting for staff to look at.
That'd be nice.
Okay.
Okay. I will,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Are we still under discussion?
Yes, under discussion.
Okay, so Fred, in your motion, you mentioned something about them talking to the neighbors.
Right.
So how does that tie in with the cut sheets?
that's different than the cut sheets.
So you're asking them to go talk to the neighbors about the lights in the front of the house and the street,
Right.
but nothing else?
Right, and so, but I would accept a friendly amendment to the motion, which is what Jamie is proposing, to request the cut sheets be made available as a part of the final document.
Sounds good.
So the question is, does the seconder, who was the second?
I was the second.
Jamie.
Do you
Yes.
agree to that? Okay. So
Michelle.
that's that added to the motion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, I wanted to verify, you're asking the motion to, you're granting final approval of the motion of the project and asking them to reduce the amount of site lighting. Do you want that to come back to consent for final details, or are you just leaving it up to the neighbors
I'm
and
going to
the
leave it up to
designers?
the neighbors, and we're just talking about the few lights on the front of the, right at the street side,
Okay.
okay?
The lights on the olive trees.
And the olive trees. Okay?
Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful project. Good job. And we keep this and this. Oh, what did I do? Did I give you all my, John, hold on. Get the next project up here. Our next project is 1702 Hillcrest Road. Great. This is also here for final review, and we will have some minutes coming up momentarily.
I know, I just changed it like the wind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, do you want me to read?
Yes.
Okay. So this project was last seen on November 15th. The following motion was made by the board to continue one full week with the board with the following comments. One, clearly denote how the detailing works in conjunction with the actual elevation. Two, provide railing details that are consistent with the elevation drawings. Three, study the deck framing to ensure compliance with high fire area requirements. Four, study the landscaping to ensure compliance with high fire requirements, specifically under the extended wood deck. Five, provide a section detail for the Tier 2 SWMP compliance. Include drainage details for the existing oak tree. Provide existing and proposed plantings specifically regarding the area of work on the slope. 6, paint the conduit of the light fixtures on the railings. 7, specify locations and provide details on how the light fixtures attach to the railing of the deck. Motion was made by Miller, seconded by Sweeney. It was carried on a 5-0 vote. Bernstein and Zimmerman were absent.
Okay, thank you. And could you introduce yourselves?
Cheryl Gross, landscape architect.
Okay.
Paul Belmont, structural engineer.
Okay, welcome. And how did you address these? And you actually turned that off, I think, accidentally. There we go. How did you address our...
Well, let me just start with the landscape.
Okay.
So one thing we do is, let me just show you planting plan. So we have 2 plant species, basically, on the hillside, which was part of our discussion last time, the Baccharis and the Rhombus, which are ground covers. And to fully comply with all the fire requirements, I increased the spacing, so I eliminated the quantity of plants, and I pushed them away from the deck. There are no plants that are under the deck, but neither were they the last time, but I just made sure that they were further away, and this fully complies with all the fire compliance requirements. So I think this one has been satisfied. The second one was the intention, this project already existing complies with Tier 2. The embellishment of the second level of compliance is just to provide the rock surface in the existing low spot of where the water naturally flows from the property. And I was asked last time to just show a simple detail of placing the rock. This is natural rubble. This is not purchased. This is just rock that's on site that'll be crushed, and it'll be hand secured into the already depressed area of the soil. We are not manipulating grade. We're not changing the flow of the water. We're just simply slowing it down a little bit and allowing it to percolate a little further out. And that is how I address the detailed requirement for that. The railing, if maybe one sheet forward. You asked just to see the rhythm of the post of the railing. And it's the railing, just to refresh your memory, the railing, this is almost on grade. So the railing is really here and there. This may or may not require a railing at all. That, I think, to a certain extent, is up to the owner's discretion of if they just want to have that there. But we're pretty much at grade right about here, and then it really is from here to here. So on this plan, I specified 8 feet. However, after I drew this, because the concern was the rhythm of the post, I realized from our engineer that the structural spacing of the post is really 4 feet. So what I ask of you is just to visually, double the rhythm, and then you get what the rhythm is. And so the rhythm of the post was the question, and I'm showing that it's, just a consistent 4 feet.
So this would need to be changed, this 8 foot.
Yes, the note will be 4 feet, but visually, for the aesthetics of it, doubling that, and you get to see what the railing is.
Okay.
So, and I recall that these are going to be cable rails?
Yes.
So that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
That's 8 feet. And that's 4 feet. And that actually works because the cable rails don't really stretch further than about 4 feet anyway, so that would be fine.
Right. So that's just something I'll correct
So
when
that's
it
a
goes
correction you'll have to
into
make.
building department. I'll
Okay.
just correct that.
Well, I think for our purposes, it's going to have to be changed here as well, so that any plans of record that, that stay here have to have the real spacing on there, so you might want to
Okay.
just cross
well,
that through and change it.
Sure, I could put the note, and then if you wish, I could just put the additional lines, or do you just want the note
Well,
to be
if you
changed?
can put the note, it would have been nice to have had it be correct, but
Can I touch this?
Absolutely. Thank you
The
very
easiest
much.
way to do this is just to show like that,
say typical, right?
Right.
show that. Okay. That comes 4 feet, this is typical.
Perfect, thank you.
And this is from the computer here, too.
Okay?
Thank you.
Should we change it here?
Yeah, I
as
can do
well?
that. If you want to go to the next sheet.
Okay. Was that addressing all of our,
Let's see, I think we had some issues to confirm how the, we wanted some understanding that the deck itself
Sorry.
meets the high fire requirements. So I assume that's why you're here.
Yeah, all the framing has now been changed to 4x material,
Okay.
therefore meeting the high fire requirements. No more 2x joists are called out. It's all heavy timber or
Heavy
lumber.
timber.
6x and 4x material.
And so the underside of the deck is heavy timber,
Yes.
but it's exposed.
Yes.
Okay, and the planning is away from it. And then I think the other thing that we had was details on the lights on the railing.
Well, I gave you all the details last time, and the only note that my understanding was missing was that the conduit was going, any electrical conduit that might be exposed on the deck would be painted to match the deck color.
Okay? And I think that
and
talked about tier 2,
Yep.
talked about the deck, talked about the railings. Okay.
okay. Okay, I'll open up public comment. Is there anyone who'd like to comment on this project? I don't see anyone jumping up, or yes, we might have a letter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to acknowledge a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay, thank you. And any questions from the board? Sounds like you've complied with everything we asked for. Comments?
I'm ready to make a motion,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
All right, wonderful.
All right.
Bernie.
I would like to approve the project for project design for final approval.
Final approval.
Final approval. I think that it meets the SFDB guidelines. It's consistent in its appearance. It meets the compatibility guidelines. It's got good quality architecture, and they've met number 5.
You don't need that for final.
Okay, that's it.
Under discussion.
Wait, second.
Oh, second. And a second, and then under discussion, did you, what was the offshoot, did I miss this, about any skirting on that deck from the fire department?
There is no skirting because it's all built of heavy timber.
Okay,
All the framing members increased in
good.
size.
thank you. I just missed that in your presentation. Thank you, just needed to double check. Okay, so we have a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? You have 5.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. 2345 Edgewater Way. This is second concept review. This is comments only. Project requires environmental assessment and planning commission review of a coastal development permit. And it was last reviewed by the Single Family Design Board on September 9th, 2013. So we will get some minutes on this and
Okay. At that meeting, the following motion was made, continue indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. The board appreciates the design, however, suggests the following items of study. 2, study lowering the height of the wall along the interior property line adjacent to the public beach access. 3, study the tower element with a suggestion to either eliminate it or revise the design and reduce its height. 4, study manipulating plate heights, possibly a 7-foot plate height going into a higher plate height. Moody Sisters was suggested as a design reference. 5, study methods to reduce the overall size and mass as viewed from the public street. Suggestions included the following. A, providing an increased setback from the street. B, recess the second floor. 6, revising entry design to the courtyard to be neighborhood friendly and recess the courtyard entry wall from the proposed residence. 7, provide 2 renderings of the front elevation, one of the elevation itself and the other to include the plants as they mature in growth. 8, include more evergreen trees to increase neighborhood compatibility. Action was taken and a motion by Miller, seconded by James on a 4-0 vote. Bernstein and Zimmerman stepped down. Woolery was absent.
Okay, could you introduce yourselves, please?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm the architect for Mr. Smirsky, who is present.
Michael Skolsky, owner.
And
Chris Gilliland, landscape architect.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome.
I'd like to go over a few things with you from our last meeting. We reviewed the emails that were sent in that had no addresses. These are kind of dumped on us at the meeting. We have 7 emails with no addresses. I did look up some of the people's address. One lives in Goleta, one lives up on Modoc. They do not live in the neighborhood. I would like to maybe have the city have a policy where if a neighbor writes in or emails, they should at least leave their address. So these are emails and letters of support. Mr. Smolsky and myself have been emailing neighbors back and forth. We even emailed the people that don't live in the neighborhood. We answered their questions. They asked to see drawings. We emailed drawings. And those are some of the letters of support. I think the city received some additional letters. And most of those people live on Edgewater Way. This morning at 10 o'clock, previously we had emailed the neighbors and we said that Mr. Smolsky will be here this morning at 10, and he had coffee and donuts for the people, and we had about 10 show up. And I think the majority of them didn't really have any negative comments. They were very pleased to see that we've changed to board and batten shingles, kind of a craftsman feel. And would you like to add something, Michael?
No, I think that summarizes pretty well.
Speak right into the mic.
I believe it summarizes pretty well what has happened since the last meeting.
Okay.
So I'd like to, this is what we originally proposed. And the wall in the front, that you enter a courtyard through that, on the other side of that wall, and also the tower where the stairs go up, was really a good part of the design. And to eliminate that, we thought we're just back to a plain Mediterranean house with no really accents to it. So we've gone to the craftsman feel. Fred, you had mentioned that you would like to see a perspective. And this is a perspective from the corner. And I've tried to show the landscaping that we're going to be putting in. A lot of the neighbors asked for evergreen trees, kind of tend to go to that scheme, which I tried to show. Did anyone get out to look at the site?
I have not been.
Oh, okay.
I was there again this morning.
Okay.
Oh, you missed the donuts.
I didn't know about the donuts.
Yeah, we should have emailed you.
Have to get back
See,
here
we
by
have the
11.
photos. Michelle, do you have the photos? Oh, okay.
Oh, we've done.
This is the existing house that we're going to be demoing. This is a view from the backyard of the existing house, where this lawn area and this brick path is beyond the structural setback. I guess, Denise, I want to explain the structural setback to you. And at the time, we wanted to do a Mediterranean, so we went up on Edgewater and we took pictures of the existing Mediterranean houses. There's really a variety of house, designs in the neighborhood. So the situation is that we have a lot that's 500 feet long to the high tide, and this is our structural setback. All of this, we can't remodel the existing house, we can't add on to it unless we add out to the front. So the house is in really pretty bad shape. It's been added on to 2 or 3 times. And so we added the new design right in here. This is the existing house. And this is what we're proposing with a small pool. And when we get the elevations, I can show you what we did with the front. In the minutes, you had asked that the front portion of the house maybe be a little lower to the street, and also that it becomes neighborhood friendly. Even though there's houses around the corner that have 8-foot high walls to the property line, which I wouldn't consider that neighborly. So what we've done is, this used to be the 2-story, and this was the courtyard with the garden wall across here. So what we did was we eliminated the second floor at right here, and then we added a bedroom down below where the court was. So now from the street, this is all 1 story back to here. And then we added a covered porch to the front, so that there again, it's neighborly friendly to the neighbors themselves. So even though no other houses has a porch in the front. They're either walled in or not really neighborhood friendly, I wouldn't think. So this is the front elevation. I studied some of the craftsman details in architecture, and what we're going to do is extend the overhang here and bring the roof slightly up, and then have these cross pieces in here, which shows on that elevation. I think it's a nice detail. Then we have like 8x8 posts that go down and flares out at the bottom, which is a nice craftsman detail. So this is the front elevation, and then the let's see, that's the north elevation. We're looking. So this is the west elevation here. There again, this is all one story, back to here. So the only portion that's two-story is across here, because this is open to the deck in the back. Now what we've done to make the roof work well is we added a gable, and then this hips up to a flat roof here with some nice details around the perimeter. The east elevation, we have board and bat, we have shingles on the second floor, and then we have the exposed deck in the back, or the second floor patio at that point. And I think with the detailing, we can make a really beautiful design. Let's see, I think that's
This section.
so. From here on, we can't really touch anything from here on. And this is the building portion here.
Okay.
So as we look at the site plan, we're actually 40 to 50 feet back from the street. This is our 20-foot setback. So when we get over here, even to the one story, we're over, we have about 30 feet to the house itself. And I think with the landscaping that we propose, I think it's going to be very pleasant from the street elevation.
Okay.
So Fred, this is the hips coming up, and then this is the flat roof here in the center.
And that addressed most points?
Well, I think because he went off in a different direction,
Yeah,
I think it
so it's
really
brand new.
addressed them in a different way, but I think it addressed them.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I would like to make sure the record is clear that Board Member Bernstein has stepped down from this item.
Okay.
And I'm
Yes.
assuming that's because she lives within 300 feet of this property?
Okay. Okay.
So the record's clear.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to open public comment. Anyone who wants to comment on this project, fills out a yellow slip, and I have a couple here in my hand. Sam Ryan, would you like to come forward?
Should I
And
step down?
yes, if you wouldn't mind taking a seat in the front row there and leaving that seat for comments. Take a seat right here. And introduce yourself, please.
My name is Sam Ryan. Sammy's dad. I attended the September 9th meeting and did not speak because I was not aware of the proceedings or what really was going on. And I'm truly sorry that I did not speak because from what I could see, it was a project was very negatively received and opposition against the project. It was almost like there was a campaign because from the emails as well as I received a marked up copy of the agenda on my doorstep requesting that I oppose the project. And some of the concerns that were expressed at the meeting was that it did not conform. And I would ask, what is really confirmation? Just because it is not a batten board house, of which these properties were in the 1950s built very cheaply in an area of Santa Barbara that was undesirable, and to have to maintain that same concept now, I just don't understand why. I don't know if there's any CC&Rs that dictate that or anything else. So I did not oppose the original design. Concerns were of the tower. Well, the tower was not any taller than the highest pitch of the roof. And in fact, there's a street, just 2 blocks down the street is a house with a tower that exceeds the height of the second story. The other comment was the concerns of the high fence. Well, on right there on Cooper Road, there's a house that has a fence on the street that is 74 inches tall. And the other concern was the trees. People commented on, well, we don't like this type of palm tree, they like some other type of palm tree. So I just did not understand why some of these concerns, and it seems like that because everybody that spoke was in opposition to the project, and I know of many people personally on Edgewater that did not express an opinion because they felt it was all right. They had no comment. They were not against it. They didn't come in and specifically say, I'm for this, but that doesn't mean that they were against it. And to have to force Mr. Zielinski to make these changes in order so he can get the project moving, I just don't understand it. But I would urge you to support the existing project and let them move on so that they can get this project underway.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Bernie Bernstein.
Good afternoon. I do want to reiterate I am on the board. I'm Bernie Bernstein, and I do live near this home, so I am not going to be able to vote on the project. I did want to let everybody know that I was here at the last meeting, and I also spoke, and I know a lot of the neighbors. I know them. They walk around the neighborhood. We all know each other. About at least 14 of those people do live near the project. There's one realtor that wrote a letter. There's a lawyer who lives in the neighborhood. He was at the meeting today. They're not just random people. I understand that maybe 2 of the people were, but mostly the neighbors were just actually really appreciative that Mr. Zimmerman and his client did change the style. They changed the architecture. When I talked to Mr. Zimmerman this morning at the meeting, which I did attend, and I asked him, do you think that this new design, which a lot of the neighbors sent emails, the next door neighbor, the neighbor across the way, I mean, people were just really up in arms about this Spanish-style tower house, and Mr. Zimmerman told me that he thought this was a better design, that it did fit the guidelines better. And I understand also that the owner is happy with it too. So I feel that now this is a perfect example of something that is acceptable, it's beautiful, it fits, and I think everybody, well, not everybody, you can't please everybody, but I would say there's only 2 people in the neighborhood. One of them spoke the other day. I know Sally, and now this gentleman here, but everybody else probably dozens of people appreciate the new design, and they feel that it fits the neighborhood much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any letters?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted to acknowledge received letters from both Claire and David Botcher at 2341 Edgewater. Kellum DeForest, a letter forwarded from Bernie Bernstein, and a letter from Paula Westbury.
Thank you.
And were those for or against?
The letters from the neighbors at 2341 were supportive. They said that they appreciated the revised design. They mentioned they still have some concerns, but they're happy to work with the architect and owner, mostly regarding fences and security lights.
Thank you. Okay, so that moves us now to questions from the board.
We have landscape.
Oh, you
plan.
have landscape plan, right, okay. Oh, it's not, we should have seen that before, what happened there? Whoops.
It's the same? It's the same?
Same. Okay. So the landscape plan hasn't changed a whole lot from the previous design, other than some of the style and plant material choices. The pool was as it was before. That hasn't changed much. We still like the idea of the flagstone look with the rough edge. And we've actually changed the driveway from permeable pavers to permeable concrete. We had the arbutus tree, which was sort of the focal in the previous design. We had palms sort of clumped in these other areas, and now we've switched those over to some sort of a medium-sized tree, such as an olive or a New Zealand Christmas tree, something like that. The other change is the elimination of the CMU block walls on either side. We'll be sticking with the existing fencing that's there and repairing if necessary. We've also added a little bit of planting at the base of the wall, and in response to some of the comments at the previous meeting regarding the connection and the visual connection to the second story here, we've added a couple of additional trees there for screening. And beyond that, those are the main changes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have been working, or I have talked to the park department about upgrading this strip here. Right now it's just dirt and chips. And as you get down further here, there's some hedges growing up, but along here it's just completely bare. So I'm trying to work with them on giving us approval to plant some trees and maybe a hedge. And then Michael Smirsky would maintain them. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we open up to questions from the board. Who would like to start? Jamie?
First of all, it looks great. I think the house looks beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
But I know that's a comment. So, but I do have a question. The permeable concrete drive, like what style of breaking up of the concrete are you thinking?
Is one or the other?
This one.
Use this.
Okay.
Green light.
Are you talking in terms of expansion joints and control joints and that sort of thing?
To make it permeable, yeah.
Oh, to make it permeable. Well, there is a permeable concrete product.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's what we're using.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to break it up.
No.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other was as far as low ground covers in the front, and I realize this is just, preliminary.
Right.
But what were you thinking?
I see grasses in the front, and also maybe some low native ground covers, along with some, the fine texture of the grasses contrasting with bold succulents.
Nice.
So all low water use.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the grasses would look good.
Yeah, I think it works well next to the beach. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's it?
Lisa?
Well, I think you're addressing the style.
This is question.
Question, sorry.
Hope you're not on again or something.
I'm on.
Okay.
Right. No. I'm not on mute. The brick on the bottom story. What made you decide to add that element?
You want to answer, Mike?
Good question.
So actually, the brick is my idea.
Pardon?
The brick is my idea. So the reasoning behind is twofold. We want to, first of all, maintain the ease of maintenance. I mean, where this is an oceanside property, so having a brick veneer, especially on the facing the ocean, will lower our maintenance costs of the wood, since we're giving up on the stucco. And the second one, we have seen a number of houses in the neighborhood, not in the Mesa neighborhood, but in the Craftsman style, that has brick, and we like it, me and my wife.
Okay. Is it a common brick?
Well, I should have brought a picture of it, but the brick that I'd like to use is a reused brick, and not the which you can get at Santa Barbara Masonry. Some of the places carry it, where they've saved bricks off projects, and it has that used look, which I think would fit nicely with the design.
Recycled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Comments? Any questions? Excuse me.
Yeah, well, I had my brick question, but it got answered. On the top roof piece,
The roof plan.
actually,
Here it is.
Well, the elevation.
Oh, that's the old house.
New elevations. So, a couple of points. I think the last design you had a roof height of about 25 feet to the ridge. This is about 25 feet to the top of this element. So is that an open picket up there like a widow's walk, or what is
Yeah.
that? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you can't walk up there.
No, but it's designed like a widow's walk.
Yeah, right.
Building height. Is it going to be a front fence at any wall? At any point?
Yeah, we're thinking running a front fence around, whether it be a picket fence or we haven't designed that
Okay.
yet.
And then on
That will only be like 42 inches high.
right, a standard
Yeah.
front fence. And then on the side fences, as I recall, there's a chain link fence there.
Yes.
So from what I just heard you say, that's going to stay. So, and it indicated to some degree on the landscape plan
It's way in the front.
that there was going to be, it appears there's going to be some stuff that's going to grow up onto that. Is that going to grow up on the chain link, or?
Yeah. Well, yes, we're trying to get permission from the park department to plant.
To treat this.
To treat that.
So that the fence is on the property line, so the city has to agree to let you grow something up on the.
Right,
on
right.
the fence, okay. Let's see.
But we are planting some on the other side too, aren't we? That will grow over.
Vines. This looks like vines here,
Yeah.
right?
There are
Yeah.
some vines over there as
Right,
well.
right. And then, not being a landscape architect, so I'm not familiar with all the terms and the names, but I take it from, based on Jim's, whoops, that's not it, the little perspective sketch, that the idea is to put these couple of trees in front, like right here. So those are evergreens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And how, do they get very high, or no? This is kind of a
No, I
medium-sized
mean,
tree?
15, 20 feet, 25 at the most.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, that's it.
Comments?
Do you have any questions?
I guess I can start, if you guys want to
Okay.
start? Okay. I think this is certainly an acceptable approach, acceptable design. I think that kind of tells the story, and I appreciate your willingness to change the architectural style. As I said, I went out again this morning, because we've got a couple other Edgewater properties that we're going to be looking at. And it really is perplexing. I think it was expressed by one of the speakers a little earlier. This neighborhood perplexing neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that's going to be in transition from kind of the 1950s, 40s, low-key, laid-back, ocean-oriented lifestyle to a little more sophisticated neighborhood. And so one of my questions, and it's really not for this project, but it is concerning all these Edgewater projects, and the whole neighborhood out there, everybody walks on the street. There's no sidewalks anywhere. And so...
And some no driveways.
And some no driveways. And we've got a whole eclectic, we've got, as you pointed out, some 8-foot fences on the front. We've got some very confusing properties when you're trying to find the address, et cetera. From the city standpoint, Michelle, has anybody talked about what happens when we have a neighborhood that has no sidewalks? Is that going to be addressed in a zoning way, or how does that?
Generally, no, that's a public works issue mostly. Sidewalks are currently they're only generally required as part of a new subdivision.
Okay.
So unless the Public Works Department determined that they wanted to do a street improvement project and provide sidewalks, it's not likely to happen at this time.
Even this project and all the other projects we have looked at Edgewater, and I think we've got one coming. We don't have to deal with whether somebody has sidewalks or not. Okay. In general, I think that this really does relate to the kind of this notion that it was originally a Moody house. So I think you've done that fairly carefully. I appreciate that. I'm going to look forward to the detailing, particularly the Widow's Walk, see how you pull that off. And I would encourage you to really be able, when the next time you come, delineate for us how you're going to treat the front fence and whether it's going to have a gate or a post or whatever it might look like. I think that would be important, and hopefully give us a report back on your negotiations with the city parks about the landscaping along that chain link fence. That would be probably important to see how that comes out.
I was not here. I was on vacation, and look what happens. I'm never leaving again. I have a question, Michelle. So this area, it's a structural setback, but they are also not allowed to come in with any plant life for erosion control or anything like that in that area between native hillside plantings to mitigate erosion. And we don't know what those are, though, yet, but that should show up in the future. But they are allowed to plant there.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that will actually be brought up as part of the Planning Commission discretionary review. This project, as a bluff-top site, does require Planning Commission review for a coastal development permit.
Okay.
And at that time...
So this is still comments only?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would like to wait to come back in here and just say that I, between the two, would have chosen this if I had been here.
I know. I was disappointed you weren't here.
I cannot understand why this board couldn't support this and why the neighborhood couldn't, because there are many homes like this up there. And why anyone has to be held to a standard of what the house that's going to be demolished looks like. Why there is no reason why that I think that should have happened. And I do have a problem with the brick, I have to say, and with the 3 different materials on the outside of this proposal. I think it's extremely busy, and I think it's, I can't visualize how that's going to be in the end with all those different materials on it. I think the board and bat was, with the shingle, is a much, much better look for this style of house. Mm-hmm. And that the brick, if you did any of that, I just don't see it going all the way up like that. You know, maybe if it was somewhere on the bottom or... But I just don't even see the brick, quite frankly.
Yeah, this has been removed. This brick is gone.
Okay.
Yeah. The only brick now is on the other side.
Then why do it? You know, I'm sorry, but that's just my feeling about it.
Stone.
Stone would be a much more, I think, compatible material with the look
That's fine. Stone is perfectly acceptable
Yeah.
if you guys allow it.
Yeah, the brick just throws me completely off the
The brick
cliff.
was there. The brick idea was because there's a really nice brick path if you go inside the property
Yeah,
there.
I
But
understand,
we were
and-
planning to recycle it and put it on the wall, but we're very happy to do it as a stone veneer as well.
Well, I'd like my compadres to weigh in on that, but I just find it right now that material sort of doesn't mesh with what else is going on there. And I'm sorry that I can't see this, quite frankly. I know it's going backwards, and I don't have anything to say about that because what's done is done. But fight harder for what you want.
Yeah.
You didn't. I don't know why you had to give it up. But anyway, you could have come back with something that would have perhaps made everybody happy instead of shifting completely if you didn't want to. But I know you just probably want to get through the process and move on.
Our family is really eager to start on the construction.
Okay. Well, anyway, they're both beautiful, and as long as you are content and happy, then that is, I think, what's important too, and it does fit our guidelines, and it's going to be a good-looking home.
Madam Chair, if I could respond to your comments. I don't believe this board was opposed to the Spanish architecture. Yeah, so
Right.
that wasn't the issue. It was a
All
size,
right.
scale, and bulk, and I'll be happy to talk out of record on
Okay.
why I think this happened.
All right.
Secondly, just on your issue with the brick.
Yes.
You know, my general consensus is always leans towards where you like to go simplify, don't use a lot of materials. But you know, what's kind of interesting about this neighborhood is a lot of the houses are made up and have been built on and added to over the years. And so the nature of the neighborhood is kind of this serendipitous mixture of materials. So in a way, having reversed from Spanish architecture to this approach, in this particular case, I can visualize how the brick can work. So I'm not as opposed to the use of the mixture brick, and I think Mr. Zimmerman is strong enough in his design prowess to make it work. So I'm less concerned about that. I really hear the owner's concern about having to maintain this house next to the ocean. So that's not, for me, at least in this particular application, as big a concern as it would be maybe in another neighborhood.
Okay.
So that's
I guess it
kinda
is for me.
That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate what the efforts you've taken to comply with the request from the last session. And I feel that perhaps the stone, if you are going to have veneer, because you do have a flagstone motif going around the pole and in other areas, that you carry that through possibly halfway up, like wainscoting in a couple of areas, but to me, it cuts the house in half. You see one material on the bottom and another on the top. I know we're not supposed to say I love it, but I love the fact that you have a front porch to encourage community in the community, and I really think that's what I heard the neighbors say, that it's a friendly neighborhood and people are outside, and that you are providing that that I think is great. So, thank you.
I just out of curiosity, when you said now that the brick isn't there right on the front entry, where would the brick be? Because where would the stone be?
In the south elevation.
The south?
The brick underneath. The brick is shown underneath the
Okay.
patio above.
Okay. I feel the same way as Fred, really. You know, like I've seen in Craftsman, brick and stone integrated very nicely with wood. So I would be fine either way. And I think the house is beautiful, and hopefully
Oh, thank you.
the homeowner is happy that they went that direction. I'm sure that's why they changed it. that
Could
they
I
didn't
make
have
a
issues.
comment?
Sure.
On the Mediterranean, the board and in the minutes, it said get rid of the tower and the garden wall. And I feel that's really part of the biggest part of the design. Like I say, lowering the tower, not having the tower, you're getting back to just a standard Mediterranean house. So.
Okay. All right then, so...
If I could add,
Yes.
I know there are a lot of hurt feelings on all the sides and the neighbors, and I just want to move on.
Yes, understood. Understood, absolutely. And so what we can do to move you on is to give our comments here to send this project over to where it needs to go, which is going to be to environmental assessment, all right?
And the coastal committee. So,
Planet
Madam
Coastal.
Chair, I would like to make the following motion. That one, the board finds that the architectural approach presented at this meeting is acceptable and received with favor in terms of the design approach. When the project returns, the board would like some update and report on confirmation on the planting along the public easement to the south, north, west. That consideration be given to define any fence that may be placed on the front yard. That further presentation of the brick facade or stone facade on the south side, or the south elevation, be presented. That detailing of the rooftop element be shown, and that we look forward to a more refined landscape plan and details on the architecture.
I'll second that.
And a second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Great, thank you.
good luck in your process.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
That should be stated in the motion.
continuing indefinitely back to this board after they do whatever they have to do with the planning commission.
So it's continued indefinitely to planning commission to return to full board.
Oh, yeah, how do you say that? Welcome back, Jim. Welcome
I'll
back.
see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay?
I'm just 4 weeks out, so.
Okay, how you feeling?
Are you?
Good, yeah.
You're here, so that's a big plus.
The only problem is I have to be driven every place.
Well, they're not allowed you to drive.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Great.
Good, good.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You want to set, Jim?
Do you want to
Yeah.
set that?
Great. Okay, 1322 Crestline Drive. Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Those are the last two, I think.
All right, we have a concept review new item here. This is a proposal for facade alterations, an interior remodel, and 130 square foot one-story addition to an existing 2,262 square foot two-story single-family residence. The proposal also includes site alterations, including the demolition and replacement of site walls and decks, remodeling the existing pool, adding a new spa, new fences, new terraced planting beds, and a new fire pit and barbecue area. The proposed total of 3,102 square feet, located on a 12,239 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District, is 77% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio. The project will address violations identified in ZIR 2013-00308. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. Compliance with Tier 3 stormwater management program is required prior to granting final approval. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Amy Taylor, architect for the project.
Wonderful, welcome.
Thank you.
And your presentation.
Architecturally, it's a relatively simple project. This is a two-story existing volume, and the rest is a single story. Do we have the photos? The addition is basically filling in an existing atrium space. The entire east side of the house is buried into the hillside. This is an 8-foot-high retaining wall, so that roof is on grade. So most of our architectural work is at the back of the house. And that's the street view, which I think is more important in terms of some of the landscaping. This is a roof view of the atrium that will become a matched roof surface. Barbecue area, and it's a really interesting location. Very steep slope off of the back. Las Positas is way down below, but there's so much screening. You can't see this really from anywhere nearby. In terms of the site work, right now it's an L-shaped pool. They want to lop off a little piece of the L and create just a small lap pool with a built-in spa. We are really going to build a new kitchen in the existing area and a new deck in the existing area. We're proposing, at the moment, we're looking at putting pool equipment under the deck to allow access within setbacks instead of getting into over 10-inch development in the setback areas. We're also looking at, right now there's an existing garden wall along the top of slope. We're looking at possibly raising that garden wall to level out more of the usable yard space. And then at the pool deck, stepping down with some terraced beds. And so, some of the site work, just the kitchen. View of the deck from downhill. We'll need to address high fire, so we'll be wrapping it with a vertical hardy siding, which is similar to the house, some of the house siding. Possibly digging in to create a spot for the pool equipment. Existing retaining wall, lifting it up about 24 inches if that becomes feasible, and then terraced beds stepping down to the back. Some sections through all of those areas. New steps down to the deck area, lifting the wall, terraced beds with some separation from walking surfaces to eliminate the requirement for guardrails. So at the house, we have a small atrium space, which is, conceptually it's nice, but functionally it's a kind of a dark hole. So we're proposing to fill that in, remodeling a master bathroom, new closet, tucking in a laundry room with just casework into the entryway. The proposal also is replacement doors and windows. A new skylight in the bathroom, which will be installed clear of the front setback requirement. And let's see, upstairs. Upstairs, I'm hoping to reconfigure one bedroom. The closets take out the corner, and since this is the view side, it'd be nice to reduce the closet and enlarge windows. We're doing a proposed interior remodel at the upstairs bath. And the roof plan shows skylight, fill-in roof area at the atrium. Exterior elevations. This is the back of the house. This is showing the enlarged window. If the budget doesn't allow for the remodel, we'll just do a replacement window in the existing opening. There's an existing picture window, plaster at the upstairs existing, and a vertical siding at the single story. On the west side, overlooking the pool, we need to replace a guardrail, so we're proposing wood posts with cable railing, stainless cable railing. I'm hoping we're going to be able to cut back some of the roof. The roof is fairly heavy, a breezeway to enter through. Cut back some of that roof to allow a clear story over the existing entry door, which you can see in the section here. So basically lifting the ceiling both inside and outside and cutting it back for more natural lighting. Proposed fixtures. Optional lifting ceiling at the master bedroom, skylight, and softening at the bathroom. And I think this view mostly just shows this side of windows as well. Proposed landscape plan. We have quite a steep slope, 15% slope. Where's that front picture? And there's an existing concrete block wall that surrounds a lower area in the front yard. And I think it'd be nice to just plunk in a medium-sized formian at both ends of that wall just to soften those corners. And then the rest of it is relatively lower plant material with ground covers that'll flow over the walls. Just a simple Raphiolepis screening, not to exceed 42 inches. And then at the back, we are proposing new pavers at the patio with Oklahoma stone edging at the pool, and then planting beds to give a good distance from walls. And I think materials are pretty good. My quantities need to change. I didn't update quantities from a Friday revision. And below the wall, just dropping in a few natives that will go with the existing oak canopy below. And for a lighting plan, just using very small bollard lights along the edge of the paving with a couple of step lights down to the deck. And then, as needed, access lighting to the pool equipment. At the kitchen area, I'd like to do a couple of small wall sconces. Those are basically the same, just with a different canopy, I guess. Pool plan really mostly just shows sound requirements of the equipment at this point. We need to coordinate our drawing set. And I do have the proposed color board. Existing roof is a cedar light silver wood, an existing dark brown trim. The existing plaster and wood siding, I think this reproduction's pretty bad. I think it's more in the range of these kind of tones. New patio doors and windows, anodized aluminum, bronze aluminum. We do need to waterproof that little deck upstairs, so we'll use a Tuflex. Proposed material for the pool, patio, coping, inside of the pool, and the wood deck, basically reuse the existing TimberTech boards.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll open this up now for public comment. I don't see anyone out there, but we may have a letter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to acknowledge a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Thank you. And we'll close public comment and now go to questions from the board. I'd like to start off. Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Chair, I think I got it, but could you share with me on the deck? It's going to be, I guess, the site plan. So you're going to take down the decks that's there and rebuild a deck. So is it basically the same area?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the deck itself, you showed a railing up on the other, I think it was the other deck up on the second floor. You're going to put in cable railing. So is that cable railing also going to be used down here?
Yes.
Okay. And then You mentioned a garden wall that you're gonna, I think it's this wall.
Mm-hmm.
What's the material are you thinking about there?
Plaster.
Plaster, okay. And then the roof material is gonna stay the same?
Existing.
On the infill piece, that's gonna, okay. And then on the front door, do we have do you have a photograph of the front?
Yes.
That end up.
Those are,
Oh, could we see the photos, please, at your end?
I'm sorry.
Front door.
So it's this piece. So what you're proposing, I think,
front door
Up
Right.
there.
is here.
Oh, in the back by the pool?
oh, okay. I thought you were talking about this front door.
No, that's a
Okay.
gate.
Okay, so it's this piece you're going to cut back.
Yes.
Okay, that's why I was confused. 'Cause
Yeah, you walk through a breezeway.
Okay.
So just
Okay.
get rid of
And then the
that.
window you're going to change is which window? It's not on that
We
photo.
are proposing to replace all of the windows.
With bronze, but you were going to change one window
Oh,
specifically.
the one, let me see, where are we?
That one.
That one.
Okay.
So this one would shift over and become longer and a prettier proportional
Okay, so this
division.
is facing towards town. That's facing to the west. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Then, front door, we asked about that. Material, colors you're showing. So essentially, the colors are kind of the same colors the house are now?
Yes.
Okay. And then my last question is about the carport thing on the site plan. So I was over there this morning, and there's obviously getting ready to do construction, et cetera. There was a trailer parked,
Oh, they've been clearing some of the,
there's a trailer parked in
Mess.
this. So this is not a carport in the sense that it's covered?
yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
This is the roof line. There's a lot of roof.
Here's the
Okay, so
overhang.
it's that piece right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the trailer I saw was kind of parked, I guess, in here this morning. All right. So that's covered and that's not being changed.
That's not being touched.
Okay.
This is all covered. This is the piece.
And that's a two-car garage. So I have a question to Michelle. This is existing parking in the front yard, so to speak. So is that's allowed?
That's the existing configuration that was permitted, and they're not making any alterations to it, so that is allowed to remain.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
So you have new paving, and you're in Tier 3. So what is the new paving?
Pavers.
Pavers, it's listed on a couple of the sheets. Angela's pavers. It is not a permeable paver. I was reviewing stormwater principles yesterday, and this is a challenging site.
Right.
We're on top of a steep slope, and I
Right.
don't think a permeable pavers is appropriate at all for that patio. Right now, I want to drain some of the new patio into the planting beds. I think we can handle a little bit of drainage to the back of the house. But other than that, my best strategy is a storage tank where we're demoing part of the pool. So we
Okay.
can collect rainwater and
Okay.
use it in irrigation.
That's what I was wondering.
And maybe tuck a second little tank in the front yard. Maybe we could get some infiltration along the front planting bed, but it's 15% slope, so it's going to be hard to slow it down.
Okay. And then I was just curious where your spray heads, your pop-up, because you have some drip, but where the spray might be. Do you know yet?
I haven't really thought about the irrigation
Okay.
yet.
So you're kind of general.
It's just
right
a general
now.
note
Okay.
that it would be low volume, whatever is used.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Lisa.
Yes, you have indicated on the planting plan, new 5-foot-high chain link fence, but I'm not seeing that. I mean, I'm just assuming it's enclosing your pool, and but
let's
maybe it got
see.
left off.
This is.
Oh, you have to show it
this-
up here on camera, please.
Oh, sorry. This line is where I've indicated, but I have a feeling it's going to be moved to the property line because the owners have a large dog. Currently, it's up closer to the garden wall, but I have a feeling that's going to be moved
Oh,
downhill.
I see, okay.
But she'll need the gate thing and all that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
Madam Chair, I think
Yes,
that
Mrs. Sweeney.
I see an amenable project here. I think if we make a motion, we may want to make some comments about things we want to see when it comes back. Obviously, storm-free, water management issues. I think we'd probably want to see specifically where that pool fence is going to be located and what it's going to look like. Certainly, on the front of the house, making sure that we kind of see what the final landscaping and the water management will be. And I think the rest of it is pretty straightforward, so I don't see any huge issues that couldn't make it compatible with the neighborhood.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes. On the planting plan, when you return, perhaps you could, on the existing oak trees, show trunks. And on your symbols, a lot of the landscape symbols are the same and kind of not to scale. And it's a little bit hard to know what's really going on. So you could provide a legend and perhaps differentiate the symbols. That would be good.
Okay, thank you. I would agree with that. Yeah, the symbols here, especially here, they get pretty confused since they're all kind of the same. So if we could get something a little closer to scale, that would be very helpful. And like you said, your plant count is probably needing some updating too, yeah. And also anything that's going to be going down in here once you move the fence back. Irrigation, is it existing? Or
No, she's got it on the planting plan.
Yeah.
A little note.
There's notes. Okay.
Honestly, I don't know if they have existing.
Okay.
So I put the standard notes in case there are changes.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, just a quick question to my landscape colleagues. Does this have to have any kind of fire review because of where it is on the hillside?
Yes.
It does.
Okay.
Well,
The architect's saying yes.
really? Do we need fire review for just a small, minor remodel here? There's nothing.
Well, if they're doing any alterations to the landscape plan, then it will be part of the building permit. That's just standard procedure. It's not required
So
prior
somebody's
to
going
design
to check
review.
it somewhere. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Not sure Chris Lane. Is Chris Lane in the high fire zone?
Yes.
It is, because it's hillside.
Because of that big
Yeah.
hillside.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion for design approval for the applicant to return, I assume on an indefinite, that it in general meets the consistency and appearance of the neighborhood, that the materials proposed and the minor architectural changes are compatible with the adjacent neighbors, that the quality of architecture and materials that are being proposed are acceptable, that the landscape is acceptable with comments to follow, and that it appears that it's met the good neighbor guidelines in terms of view corridor, and impact on the general neighborhood. I would make the following comments that we'd like to see when the project returns, that we would like a definitive location for the pool fence that's required and the style of the pool fence, height, details, etc. That we are able to review the Storm 3 water management plan, particularly if tanks and other devices are proposed, their locations and sizes. That at the landscaping plan that's shown, that a legend and symbols be coordinated so that they're clear, and that irrigation systems be further delineated so we understand how that coordinates with the Tier 3 storm water management program. The board finds that the architectural changes in terms of window material, locations, and other materials are acceptable.
Okay, I'll second that.
Yeah, we should add also for the guidelines for pool safety.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, along with the pool fence.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you. I'll accept that.
Accept that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No one?
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
We'll see you next
Okay,
time.
Thank you.
Indefinite continuance. Yeah.
Yeah, return full board. Yeah.
Yeah, painless.
Do you want me to take extra prints away?
Keep this one. At this time, I'd like to close the October 21st, 2013 Single Family Design Board.